How's everybody doing today? Frank Gregory. I am coming to you from actually Virginia. I'm down in DC for meetings, but I'm hanging in my mom's house at the moment. So doing a little Frank on the road. So I apologize if the clarity is not all that great. I'm on my laptop camera and it's not the best. So, but we'll get through it. Hopefully, get some good information for you on the plate. So, as I said, I'm down in DC. I've been here all week for a conference. It's the AUSA conference, the Association of the United States Army, and it's one of the largest trade shows in the defense industry, where all the military tech folks come in, showcase their products to both domestic and foreign potential buyers. Given the shutdown, I thought the crowd was going to be light, but it was actually quite packed. I was surprised. Lots of high-ranking officers were in attendance. You saw a lot of camo walking around. A lot of foreign dignitaries. Maybe they stood out a little bit more. Maybe the crowd wasn't as robust as I thought, so they stood out more than normal. But certainly a big crowd, including the Secretary of the Army, who graced the whole crowd with his presence. Nonetheless, there is a shutdown in play, and that will ripple through the economy. It hasn't been showing a whole lot in the markets. In fact, they've been pretty steady, but it will have effects as it goes on. We just wrapped up yesterday, was 2 weeks of shutdown, and we're moving into the third. So let's maybe give a quick overview of what's been happening, and then we will dig into what impact that could have. So, as I said, the federal government's been shut down since October 1. It's now entering its third week. Repeatedly failed Senate votes to advance funding, either long-term or temporary. Has failed at every turn. Lots of gridlock going on in Washington right now. The White House Treasury estimates a $15 billion GDP loss last week alone with the shutdown, and a month-long outage implying about 43,000 fewer jobs and 30 billion less consumer spending. So on the raw numbers alone, you could kind of dig in that there will be some impact. Yesterday, there was a key ruling, because we've been hearing a lot about layoffs, RIFs, whatever you want to call them. But yesterday, U.S. District Judge blocked the Trump administration from implementing shutdown-related RIFs, including those most recently noted on October 10th. The judge found that the actions were likely illegal or exceeding the president's authority. And the order bars any agencies from taking further steps to implement new RIFs, quote, during or because of the shutdown, close quote, for 2 weeks. So then in 2 weeks from now, another hearing is expected to see if that RIF ban is continued. If you remember, the administration had announced about 4,000 layoffs across 7 or so agencies, and that injunction protects union-represented employees government-wide. So, again, put kind of a stall on the president's plans. A lot of people thought that this was going to be an opportunity with the gridlock on Capitol Hill for the president to make some cuts that might end up being permanent and for long-term health of the economy, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, historically though, shutdowns haven't meant a whole lot, for broad U.S. equity performance. And certainly in early October, the moves have been modest. S&P up slightly. Certainly the VIX has been a little higher. And this looks like it's following that same kind of game plan as we've seen in the past. The problem is, of course, if it continues on, and a lot of folks on the street, a lot of the research departments are warning against this could go nonlinear as more paychecks stop and service disruptions compound, including procurement on the government side, air travel, the air traffic controllers and the like, maybe doing either not showing up for work for slowdown purposes in support of those laid off, or actually being RIFed. And the banks have said that the longer shutdown, it muddies the near-term data complement, which could muck up the Fed's stated plans for trying to right the economic ship. So we're just going to have to see how that plays out. But if we break down a couple of individual sectors, certainly air traffic control and TSA they're always under stress with these types of things. There's 13,000 plus controllers and 50,000 TSA officers who have received partial zero pay or sick outs arising from from this, and that of course is causes disruptions and delays, and does put pressure on Congress, fortunately, to fix this. No one wants to see that. People hate being delayed. We had a ton of travel over the last couple of years, and certainly that will cause some kerfuffling from the broad from broad voters. So certainly as this continues on, you're going to start getting more backups in travel, more kvetching from people, and maybe that pushes Congress to get a solution. But for that purpose, I'm certainly keeping an eye on some of the airline stocks and seeing how they are being impacted as this moves along. One of the things that I do love that I always talk about is IPO and deal flow, because I love catching those companies coming out public early, and the small ones, they're near and dear to my heart, and how we can play those in option pit. So certainly the SEC, their crews slimmed down, so I think you're going to see a slowdown in IPOs, slowdown in like FinCEN inquiries that enable guidance for IPOs to proceed. You're going to see a slowdown in the folks that run and marshal those those parts of the government, and that is going to impact how well and how fast these IPOs can move out, and that has rippling effects, right? Because when those pipelines of IPOs start getting mucked up, well, that's going to impact banks and brokers and exchanges, and certainly select even public companies that have put some weight and dollars behind these IPOs. So that will over time also have a ripple effect on the economy. Certainly government contractors, another sector, defense and services, that's going to take a hit over time, particularly again as payments start to slip, right? You've got some ongoing contracts, but if the government's not paying on those contracts, it doesn't do you much good. So a lot of the service contractors will start facing funding flow friction, and as well some of the big hardware primes will do the same. So again, we'll start keeping an eye on some of those big ones, like Booz Allen, Hamilton, and others that could be impacted as this shutdown continues forward. And remember, a lot of those big companies also invest in smaller companies. Booz Allen, for instance, just made a big drone investment over the summer that is helping a smaller startup company move forward. If those types of investments slow down, that's going to start slowing down that bottom end of the economy, and again, that'll start rippling up. So we'll keep an eye on manufacturing numbers from a lot of these big defense primes, the Lockheed Martins, the Raytheons, the General Dynamics of the world, which, by the way, full showing at the conference I was at. I mean, full showing and some big ticket items, new helicopters, new airplanes, new giant tanks. I mean, they had everything out there. So they brought out the proverbial big guns, if you will, to the show. But, we're going to have to wait and see what that long-term drag looks like. So at the same time, groups that actually move money within the government, such as the Undersecretary of Defense's Office for Research and Development, well, they're locked up. So now you're not going to see new contracts and appropriations coming out as quickly as companies had hoped. And again, being a small business vendor in that world, it hurts. And again, that will ripple through the economy to some degree. So keeping an eye on all these things and how it could impact the stocks that we look at in an option pit broadly, including my portfolio capital gains that Andrew Giovinazzi and I work on. But we are going to continue looking at that. As I already mentioned, certainly travel, tourism down. Take a look at the hotel and airline stocks, but then we start looking at household spending and more regional exposure, right? A lot of these big defense primes, for instance, a lot of the people who are in TSA and government That's going to impact heavily, Northern Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. So, you could have some regional impact that the rest of the country doesn't necessarily feel. But certainly in this area where I'm sitting currently, you could see a pretty big impact. So you might see some retail weakness as folks aren't spending as much, and you might see some, again, pressure on Congress to fix this, because these are your neighbors, right? Literally, you got people living next to senators and congressmen, and they might get a little vocal. We do have a habit now in this country of protesting, so we'll see how that plays out. And again, if in 2 weeks, this RIF ban is lifted, and then you got people who are now at home 100%, they're gonna get a little antsy. Particularly when they're not getting paychecks. So you'll see that. I think you'll start seeing more and more pressure on the government to get its act together, do what they're supposed to do, fund the government, make sure this country's running smoothly, and let's press forward. So what to watch out for over the next couple of weeks? While this ban is in place, you definitely want to see if paychecks are being missed. When's that second window, right? People miss one, okay, that stinks. But that second one comes in, and that tends to be a flashpoint. And you also, as this drags on, you also get those travel disruptions. Consumer spending starts going down, and that is when you might see some backlash and movement by the government to get more of their act together. And then what the court's going to do in 2 weeks, either lifting that injunction or furthering it, that waits to be seen. But certainly the more this goes on, as I mentioned at the top of this, you got some big economic impacts. I mean, pretty much like, estimated $15 billion weekly cost. And that is probably going to start snowballing upwards. So it'll start growing and having a bigger impact. And so we're going to keep an eye on that, because that could, again, negatively affect the economy. As mentioned, hasn't had a big impact on stocks so far, but will certainly, negatively impact, the economy as this moves on. On the defense side, I might as well throw out some tidbits from what I saw. Two of the stocks that we talk a lot about on the defense sector are Red Cat, ticker RCAT, and AeroVironment, ticker AVAV. And we made some great trades over the last few years on both of those stocks individually. But they've now entered into a strategic development partnership to be almost like a skunk works, where they're going to do some really high tech development. So, both of those have been strong stocks in isolation. Now, if they're JVing together, will that lift both those boats even higher? Particularly since AVAV, AeroVironment announced the launch of a new drone that really fits nicely into a niche that the government's been looking for, and they just made that announcement this past week at the AUSA conference. So keeping an eye on both of those on the defense sector side. And then certainly, we've been talking a lot about critical minerals, getting a little slammed over the last few days because they were rich. And so we've been pulling back on that, MP Materials, Lithium America, USAR, but still keep an eye on them, because some of these had gotten a big boost, like MP Materials, Lithium America, TMQ, which is a mineral exploration company, been getting they got a big lift because the government bought stakes in those companies to help them accelerate, and to shore up what we clearly see as a threat from China with these critical mineral supply chains. And so the government took positions in those companies to help shore them up, and really saw that stock accelerate. So we're, one of the things I'm doing is looking at what is the next potential wave of companies that could be in line for some of those, some of that government influx of money that would allow those companies to also get that kind of, hardcore acceleration boost of their stock price with the government not only supporting them from a direct financial standpoint of an investment, but also like with MP Materials and rare earth, creating price floors to guarantee certain prices for the minerals that they produce. And in that situation, it really insulates these American companies, these younger startup companies that have been heavily manipulated by China over the years, because China will cause price fluctuations in not just raw materials but finished products like neodymium magnets to exert control over the market, but also attempt to drive upstarts out of the marketplace by willingly taking a hit by lowering spot prices on these minerals, forcing prices down. China's even gone so far as to shut down rare earth suppliers and finishers in China to dampen the market. So China's really played that heavily. We've been trying to combat it here in the U.S. on a bunch of different fronts. It's not just rare earth. It's uranium and battery metals like lithium. This is China's always played heavy-handed with these critical minerals, and we've done. The U.S. has decided enough is enough, and is really making a move to attempt to thwart that. And this public-private partnership, if you will, where they are now making investments into these companies, seems to be a very solid path to help shore up these companies, to give them the time to become viable entities and create our own supply chains, actually take our supply chains back, because we were the ones that invented all this rare earth technology, for instance, and China very strategically took it away from us. So we're keeping an eye on that. And one of the things we're looking at is what are the likely contenders for potential government money, and we look breaking it down into certain sectors like battery metals, copper, lithium, rare earth, uranium. And when you really look at that, that could be the playbook that America needs to really build out its resources. And we are going to continue looking and researching these companies. And with the contacts that I have in DC, and with some of the the CEOs at some of these companies, understanding the conversations that are happening in boardrooms and in the halls of Washington, we're going to try and guesstimate, if you will, and I probably everybody hates that word, but who are the likely contenders to get government influx of capital into their stocks. And I might tease you with a couple. Certainly, USAR is one near and dear to my heart. I was early investment banker. Did some investment banking work on that stock early on back in 2019. So I'm very familiar with it, and I certainly want to see it succeed. I don't have any I'm not an insider in the company or anything. A lot of what I know is just through some friendships I've maintained. But I do talk to leadership there. I talk to leadership at other companies, and I talk to a lot of the consultants and folks working the Hill to try and advance these critical concerns. And so USAR is certainly one that we're going to keep an eye on. For a potential move. That stock's getting hammered today. Again, it was one of those ones that was inflated, overpriced, so it's getting a bit of a profit taking beat down. By some by some large institutional holders of that. But it's still in a good spot. They're doing the right things. They got a new CEO. They're really shoring up the three points of the triangle of rare earth supply chain between the critical minerals themselves, the processing, and the finished product, which they've got a magnet manufacturing plant that is continuously ramping up production in Oklahoma. So that is certainly catching the eye of the government. And the new CEO who just came in from Siemens had a White House meeting a couple of weeks ago that if you saw that stock really took off. That was when she came out of that meeting, said that they were certainly in line for potential government funding, and that shot that stock price up again, overvalued a little bit in that short term. But I think there's still a long term play there, and if it comes down some more, we've been taking profits ourselves at Option Pit off of that. Could be interesting to see when you dip your toe back in when it's no longer so overly inflated. But we're going to look at, like I said, the same type of things in the battery world. Some lithium manufacturers and exploration companies, copper. When you start building out infrastructure across the U.S., which we need to do desperately still, copper is so critical. And so we're looking at some copper names again. Lithium, that whether it's Albemarle, Rio Tinto. There's a lot of good names in play there. Certainly rare earth, in addition to USAR. We've done well with AREC, American Resources Corp. They're another one that, because of the technology that they have, where they can recycle coal waste and other waste, including old battery waste, and extract rare earth out at high purities to create new magnets. That's something, again, that the U.S. should look very favorably on, and they're another one in line to potentially get some government funding. And then the other big area in the critical mineral space is uranium, and there's been a lot of interesting moves lately with uranium, including Fluorocorp, FLR. Has been making some big moves lately. So we're going to keep an eye on all this. I'm not going to give anything away right now because we want you to come back and look at capital gains and look at some of the other trading products that we've got out there, because we've been really doing a great job digging in, finding these. I have my own, as I said, capital gains is the one that I do with Andrew Giovinazzi, but we share research across all the traders at Option Pit, and that's where when we look at the markets, look at the state of the markets, and start broadly passing that information and sharing it amongst each other, we really come up with some good ideas, and it's a constant flow of communication, and quite frankly, a lot of fun and a lot of good for all of you. So. I'm on my own today. As I said, I'm on the road. That's all I've got, and it's been wonderful talking to anybody. The chat's up. I got. If anybody's got any questions for me, happy to take a couple over the next few minutes. If not, we can go our merry way and have a great Thursday. All right. Well, it looks like everyone got what they needed. So, wonderful talking to everybody. And, I'll be back again next week, capital gains, Tuesday, 2 p.m. And, I'm sure I will be doing a state of the market next week as well. So great talking to y'all, and have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care.